During Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, we said goodbye to some of our favorite Marvel movie characters. But the time for mourning is over, and it's time to get excited about all the new characters who will be joining the MCU. Black Widow will have David Harbour as the Red Guardian, and there have been quite a few hints that the Black Panther sequel will introduce an aquatic character many of us have been eager to see for quite some time. How will the Red Guardian and Namor find their way into the MCU, and what will the future hold for them? People love Marvel movies because they exist in a fantasy world that's enough like our own to be relatable, but fantastical enough to provide some of that sweet, sweet escapism. But you know what's almost as interesting as characters with superhuman abilities fighting to save the world against the forces of unimaginable evil? Copyright law. Okay, maybe it's not exactly fascinating, but it does answer a lot of questions, like why haven't we had another Hulk movie since that one nobody ever talks about? Disney has access to so many Marvel characters, but of course we can't help thinking about the few that they don't have. But in our defense, they've been teasing one of our favorite aquatic superheroes for quite some time, and the stars and copyright laws might finally be aligning enough to actually get him on the big screen. All the way back in the movie Iron Man 2, there were multiple Easter eggs about Namor the Submariner. At the Stark Expo, you can see multiple logos from a business called Oracle, and the company's CEO even makes a brief appearance. In the comic books, Oracle is the name of a company owned by Namor himself. Basically, it's a company funded by hidden ocean treasure that works to protect the environment. Their tax forms at the end of the year must be wild. Then there's a scene in which Tony Stark and Nick Fury are discussing the Avengers Initiative while surrounded by several holographic screens. Most of them include known locations, like the crater Mjolnir made after crash landing in New Mexico. But there's one screen that seems to show an area of interest located off the coast of Brazil. Could this be the fabled underworld world of Atlantis, or Namor's Fortress of Solitude? There's also a much more recent possible reference to Namor. During Endgame, Natasha Romanoff worked to maintain some semblance of order in the world. During a meeting, Okoye revealed that there was an underwater earthquake off the coast of Wakanda. She didn't seem worried about it since it had no impact on the land. But comic book fans couldn't help but think this was a big hint that Namor is out there somewhere. Probably in the ocean if I had to guess. In the comics, Namor has a, let's say, antagonistic relationship with the land of Wakanda, and the Black Panther in particular. And what do you know, Disney confirmed at the D23 Expo that Black Panther 2 will be released on May 6, 2022. There isn't much official information out there yet, but there are rumors that the plot involves Wakanda being under attack from some kind of outside force. Since a place being under attack is the plotline of most superhero movies, this rumor is vague enough to be believable, and it's possible that it will be Namor who emerges as a threat to Wakanda. Remember that fun copyright issue I mentioned earlier? You probably know that back before Marvel started cranking out blockbusters, they were in desperate financial straits and sold the movie rights to Spider-Man and associated characters to Sony. But Universal Studios ended up with the distribution rights to some characters like the Incredible Hulk. This means they have the option to distribute any movie made starring this big green guy, and why wouldn't they want to take advantage of that? Since Disney doesn't want that, they've had the Hulk show up as a side character instead of giving him another standalone movie. Namor is another character who's been stuck in this situation with Universal, and it's been preventing him from making his Marvel movie debut. Back in 2016, Joe Quesada stated that he thought Disney now had the rights to Namor, but a few years later, Kevin Feige admitted that it's still a complicated situation. During an interview with IGN, he admitted that the rights to Namor aren't as clean or clear as the majority of other characters. So it's possible that Disney has either managed to get all the rights to Namor back or is working on a compromise. After all, they managed to get Spider-Man to swing back into the MCU, so it's not outside the realm of possibilities. Since Marvel has recently hinted at Namor during Endgame, there seems to be a headway being made on the rights issue for this character. And with Black Panther 2 in the works, it seems like we might finally get to see Namor the Submariner on the big screen. And if details of the movie rights are a little fuzzy, then it makes sense that he'll be introduced in a movie where he's not the main focus. That way, Namor can join the MCU, and Disney can still control the film's distribution. If that happens, then it's most likely only a matter of time before Namor gets his own movie. Throwing money at a problem is a really effective solution, and Disney has a lot of throwing cash lying around. And then there's Alexei Shostakov, also known as the Red Guardian. I feel like all I have to say to get people excited about seeing him in Black Widow is that he's played by Stranger Things actor David Harbour. Seriously, he's just the best. In the comic books, Alexei was once married to Natasha before she became the Black Widow. That bit of his backstory will likely change in the movie, and Harbour has described him as a fatherly figure to Natasha. The Red Guardian is essentially the Soviet Union's answer to the United States Captain America, but without the super soldier serum, he's hardly a match for the Red, White, and Blue Guardian. Harbour revealed that the MCU version of the Red Guardian will have both comic and tragic flaws in addition to his strengths. That sounds like the standard recipe for a great Marvel movie character to me, and I'm here for it. But will his time in the MCU start and end with the Black Widow movie, or will he be sticking around for a while? Oh, and make sure that pesky YouTube algorithm doesn't stop you from sticking around and catching the latest content from us here at CBR. Take a moment and click on that subscribe button, then turn on your notifications either from right here or in the settings menu if you're on your phone. Now let's get back to the hype train and talk about the Red Guardian and Namor joining the MCU. As for Namor, him showing up in Black Panther 2 definitely seems like a solid possibility at this point. But let's not forget about the upcoming Phase 4 flick Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Although Scott Derrickson is no longer directing the film, it promises to have all kinds of wacky multiverse shenanigans going on, and will tie into the show WandaVision. If you thought a giant purple guy collecting magical rocks as a form of population control was wild, you must not read the comic books. They got clones, zombies, a Spider-Man with 6 arms, and all kinds of crazy scenarios made possible in no small part to the existence of a multiverse. It wouldn't be too surprising if somewhere over the course of their adventures, Doctor Strange and Wanda Maximoff encountered King Namor himself. Just because Doctor Strange doesn't have the Time Stone anymore doesn't mean time travel is something we should completely put past him. After all, Tony Stark managed to figure it out during Endgame without any fancy magic powers. Not only would the Multiverse of Madness give us a first glimpse of Namor, but we could see a version of the Red Guardian who fits into his uniform a little bit better. Time travel has the potential to be an interesting plot device when it's not overused. We know that Loki messed up the timeline during Endgame when he grabbed the Space Stone and escaped. And now he's getting his own show on Disney+. Even if Alexei doesn't survive Black Widow, that doesn't mean we won't ever see him again, thanks to the magic of time travel and the multiverse. In the first Doctor Strange movie, the villain was originally going to be Nightmare instead of Dormammu, but Scott Derrickson thought that it would be too difficult to introduce Doctor Strange, Magic, and Nightmare, so he held off until Nightmare could get the time he needed to show off his awesomeness. Namor is definitely a character who deserves a proper and lengthy introduction, so maybe we could get a hint of his origin in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness and see his story more fleshed out in Black Panther 2. But of course, what we really want to see is Namor getting his own movie, instead of having bit parts in other films. After laying the groundwork and figuring out the character rights, that definitely seems like a real possibility. One of the many great things about Namor is that he's been both a straight-up villain and an anti-hero. For the most part, he doesn't really play well with others, and in general doesn't have warm and fuzzy feelings about the surface world. Although Namor has a pretty prickly personality, he's been known to work with other people from time to time, until they inevitably irritate him. Is it possible that we could see the Red Guardian and Namor the Submariner team up? Two of the greatest things in comic books are seeing beloved heroes fight against one another, and seeing them team up together. And just because two people don't work together in the comics doesn't mean they won't be on the big screen. Even the original MCU Avengers are different than the founding team from the comic books, which included Hank Pym as Ant-Man, Janet Van Dyne as the Wasp, Iron Man, Hulk, and Thor. The Red Guardian and Namor are both complex characters who feel an overwhelming sense of dedication to their homes. In the comics, Alexei eventually starts using the name Ronin and becomes a member of the Dark Ocean Society, an organization dedicated to restoring Russia to its former glory. And Namor, he's out to protect his people and the oceans, no matter what. It's possible that their missions could at least temporarily put them on the same side. For instance, if an enemy of Russia was posing a threat to the ocean, it could be enough to convince Namor to leave the sea in search of vengeance. It would also be great to see which heroes would step up to try to stop them. Even with Natasha Romanoff and Steve Rogers out of the equation, there are a lot of great options. Seeing the Red Guardian face off against Sam Wilson, the new Captain America, would be awesome and a fitting tribute to his fight with Steve Rogers in the comics. Would Bucky Barnes and Sam Wilson be able to combat this threat alone, or would they need some backup, possibly from Wakanda? Nakia was conspicuously absent during Infinity War and Endgame, and has worked as an undercover spy in the past. T'Challa has a lot on his plate ruling Wakanda, so it's possible he could rely on this war dog for this mission. Nakia, Bucky, and Sam would definitely be an unexpected but not unwelcome team-up. Of course, a lot of this depends on what happens during Phase 4. We'll be introduced to heroes like the Eternals, Shang-Chi, and Mighty Thor on the big screen, and there are tons of great things on the Disney Plus lineup. There's Kate Bishop, the new Hawkeye, Moon Knight, and Miss Marvel, just to name a few. A new team-up of villains just might need a new team of heroes who can work together to bring them down. What do you think about the idea of Namor being introduced into the MCU? Do you hope the Red Guardian sticks around and we get to see these two characters work together? Or do you think they should do their own things? Let us know what you think in the comments section and then click on the subscribe button to get access to more new videos from CBR. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next time.